A seemingly charming dating game contestant turned out to be a serial killer who would photograph young women nude and then rape and murder them. This man is known as Rodney Alcala. And with that, I'm Cassie.
I'm Sarah. Now let's talk about the dating game killer. In 1961, at the age of 17, Rodney Alcala joined the United States Army and served as a clerk. In 1964, after what was described as a nervous breakdown, he went AWOL and hitchhiked from Fort Bragg to his mother's house. He was diagnosed with antisocial personality disorder by a military psychiatrist and discharged on medical grounds. After leaving the Army, he graduated from UCLA School of Fine Arts and later studied film under Roman Polanski at New York University. Rodney committed his first known crime on September 25, 1968, when an eyewitness in Los Angeles called police after watching him lure an 8-year-old girl named Tally Shapiro into his Hollywood apartment.
Rodney lured this 8-year-old girl into his house and people called the cops. But how did they know that he was luring her and he wasn't related to her? Who's to say that this wasn't his niece or sister or something? You know what I mean? Why? What made them think that?
I'm not sure if it was people or adults.
Yeah.
Or if it was, I read somewhere her friends were with her. I think they were walking from dance class to home.
Yeah.
And I guess he stopped and was I'll give you a ride home. But also I think that's kind of weird, so I think the children did.
Yeah, I mean,
yeah, we don't know him, but he gave her a ride home.
Oh, so maybe they just changed the wording of it, maybe he wasn't because in my mind, luring is kind of baiting them. You know what I mean?
I picture him putting a piece of candy down on the ground and the little girl just following it.
Yeah, so maybe they said that she got, but why? If she was with her friends, why would she get into a van with somebody that she doesn't know?
Maybe she lived farther than her friends did.
Maybe? I don't know. I just think it's weird.
Or maybe he was if you don't get in the van, I'm going to kill your friends. Quiet enough to where she only heard him.
And not the friends.
And not the friends.
Guess that could be. I don't know. I guess in my mind, I'm just picturing him walking down the street with this girl. To his apartment. Or walking into his apartment and these people watching out the window. You know what I mean? But how would they know?
Yeah. I think another scenario, because that was the one I read, but it could, it's probably not, it could be wrong, or maybe somebody else watched and they probably didn't look friendly walking together or something. They could have been,
maybe she looked scared or something.
Yeah.
No, I would love to know what actually happened.
Right.
How did he get her there?
I know there's so many different
pieces that we don't really know, just kind of generics.
Yeah, different things, but we don't know what's the actual
truth.
When the police arrived, the girl was found alive, having been raped and beaten with a steel bar, but Rodney had already left the scene of the crime. To avoid getting arrested, he left the state and enrolled in the NYU Film School using the name John Berger. In 1971, he obtained a counseling job at a New Hampshire arts camp for children using a slightly different alias, John Berger. In June 1971, Cornelia Crilly, a 23-year-old TWA flight attendant, was found raped and strangled in her Manhattan apartment. Her murder remained unsolved until 2011. The FBI added him to its list of 10 most wanted fugitives in the early 1970s. A few months later, 2 children attending the arts camp noticed his photo on an FBI poster at the post office. He was arrested and extradited to California. Since the authorities were unwilling to charge him with rape and attempted murder without their primary witness, Rodney was convicted of child molestation and sentenced to 3 years in prison. The reason they were unwilling to charge Rodney with rape and attempted murder was because Tally was their primary witness, and her parents wouldn't allow her to testify, and they also moved out of state.
Oh, yeah, so that just
that's, yeah.
Because no one else was alive. Like, she's the only one so far that has survived.
Yeah, and I mean, I can understand.
Yeah.
Like, part of me wishes she testified because he could have been put away so much sooner. But, like, I could also be like, they don't want her to relive that trauma.
It's hard because she was so young.
Yeah.
8 years old is very, very young.
Being raped and beaten with a steel bar.
Yeah.
Oh, my God.
So, I mean, I understand her parents need and want to protect her and keep her away from that, you know? But it's also hard, too, because, like you said, he could have been put away so much earlier and all these other people would have been saved. So it's kind of like...
Yeah.
But we want you guys to know, like, that's why he wasn't charged in the beginning. Like, that's who their primary witness was Tali.
Rodney was paroled in 1974 after 17 months, and less than 2 months after his release, he was rearrested for assaulting a 13-year-old girl identified in court records as Julie J., who had accepted what she thought would be a ride to school. He was again paroled after serving 2 years. After his second release in 1977, his Los Angeles parole officer took the unusual step of permitting a repeat offender, a known flight risk, to travel to New York City. NYPD cold case investigators now believe that a week after arriving in Manhattan, Rodney killed Ellen Jane Hoover, 23-year-old daughter of the owner of the popular Hollywood nightclub Ciro's and goddaughter of Dean Martin and Sammy Davis Jr. Her remains were found buried under heavy rocks on a hillside overlooking the Hudson River. In 1978, Rodney worked briefly at the Los Angeles Times as a typesetter and was interviewed by members of the Hillside Strangler Task Force as part of their investigation of known sex offenders. Although he was ruled out as the Hillside Strangler, he was arrested and served a brief sentence for marijuana possession. During this period, he convinced hundreds of young men and women that he was a professional fashion photographer and photographed them for his portfolio. A Times co-worker later recalled that he would share the photos with workmates. "I thought it was weird, but I was young. I didn't know anything," she said. When I asked why he took the photos, he said their moms asked him to. "I remember the girls were naked." He said he was a professional, so in my mind I was being a model for him, said a woman who allowed him to photograph her in 1979. The portfolio also included spread after spread of naked teenage boys, she said. Most of the photos are sexually explicit, and most of the subjects remain unidentified. Police fear that some of the subjects may be additional cold case victims. In 1979, according to later trial testimony, he knocked 15-year-old Monique Hoyt unconscious and raped her while she was posing for photographs.
He shows you these photos, and you're like, why did you take these?
I feel like, okay, first of all, these moms be crazy.
I don't think the moms actually did ask him for that.
No,
I think
I
it's
don't
what
think
he's
so.
saying.
Yeah, but the co-workers, I think it might be like 50-50. I think some of them might be like, oh yeah.
Yeah.
And then others would be like, no.
But wouldn't that be weird? Wouldn't that kind of trigger something though? Like, why would a mother ask a man to photograph her young daughters naked? You know what I mean? Like, wouldn't that already kind of raise red flags for them? Or
For me, it would. I'd be like, well, then these moms shouldn't be. I'd be like,
what
CPS.
Like, what's happening? Yeah. I'm trying to think, like, what would the coworkers be thinking? They just thought it was like a normal thing?
It was like, what, the 70s?
Yeah.
Late 70s?
That doesn't seem normal no matter what time period it is. So, like, I'm just saying, like, if a coworker came up to me, showed me a bunch of pictures, and was like, oh, their moms asked me to ask them. They're just not normal pictures either. They're naked photos.
Like, they're
sexually posed.
Yeah.
I think I'd be like, what I would do maybe would be, like, talk to him and, like, not let on that I'm going to say anything, but then, like, talk with somebody else and be like, should I go to the police? Like, what do I tell a supervisor? You know what I mean? Like, ask, like, what should I do in this situation? Because it just seems very strange.
Very strange, like.
For people to just be like, oh, yeah, you must be a photographer. I don't know.
In 1978, Rodney was a contestant on the popular game show called The Dating Game. The host, Jim Lang, introduced him as a successful photographer who got his start when his father found him in the darkroom at the age of 13. Between takes, you might find him skydiving or motorcycling. A fellow Bachelor contestant later described Rodney as a very strange guy with bizarre opinions. Rodney won the competition and a date with the episode's Bachelorette, Cheryl Bradshaw, but she refused to go out with him because she found him creepy. Criminal profiler Pat Brown noted that Rodney killed at least 3 women after his dating game appearance and speculated that this rejection might have been the main factor. Rodney has been killing all this time. Why do you think he would go on a game show?
I don't know. I wonder, because if you think about it logically, that's the worst move for a serial killer to make. In my opinion, especially because they're looking for him and he just put his face all over everything. But I wonder if, like, in his mind, he's looking for love in some capacity, you know what I mean? Like,
you think so?
I mean, why else would he go on the dating show? I don't, like
I guess that could be one reason. I don't know why I just thought of this, but I was like, maybe he's looking for more of a challenge. Like somebody who's been like on TV or something.
Maybe someone who's like more famous. I don't know. I'm just thinking that maybe he's like searching for love, and like all of his like killings are kind of like, they make him feel something, you know, like serial killers are strange, so they can feel love from that or satisfaction or whatever. So maybe like it's like, let me try out a dating show to see if I can find the one for me. But
he won the show, but she was like,
no.
I think she said he was charming, but he was creepy.
Yeah. Yeah, just weird. I don't know, other than what we said, I don't know why he would go on there. Because again, like we said, what the FBI and whoever's after him, they're looking for his face. He just plastered it all over the TV and wherever they posters and whatever they did then.
Robin Samso, a 12-year-old girl from Huntington Beach, disappeared somewhere between the beach and her ballet class on June 20th, 1979. Her decomposing body was found 12 days later in the Los Angeles foothills. Her friends told the police that a stranger had approached them on the beach, asking to take their pictures. Detectives made a sketch of the photographer, and Rodney's parole officer recognized him. During a search of Rodney's mother's house, police found a rental receipt for a storage locker in Seattle. In the locker, they found Samso's earrings. He was arrested in July 1979 and held without bail. In 1980, he was tried, convicted, and sentenced to death for Robin's murder, but the verdict was overturned by the California Supreme Court because jurors had been improperly informed of his prior sex crimes. In 1986, after a second trial virtually identical to the first, except for omission of the prior criminal record testimony, he was again convicted and sentenced to death. In 2001, a Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals panel nullified the second conviction in part because a witness was not allowed to support Rodney's contention that the park ranger who found Robin's body had been hypnotized by police investigators.
I find the part about them claiming that the park ranger was hypnotized by the police very, very interesting. I don't understand. Really, like, so Rodney was saying, basically, that
he's hypnotized.
That the park ranger who found Robin's body was hypnotized by the police. And that's why they couldn't go through with his conviction. Because someone agreed with it.
Yeah, but it's just like, who would agree with Rodney?
I don't know, and I feel like
there's gotta be like somebody on the inside or something, like, hey, this guy knows what he's talking about.
But hypnotized by the police, that's like something crazy that you say. You know what I mean? And then for them to be like, he's right, we can't go through with this. Like, I almost don't have any words. Like, what do you mean he was hypnotized? Let us know down below what you think about the park ranger being hypnotized.
Yeah. For the third trial, Rodney elected to act as his own attorney. He took the stand in his own defense and for 5 hours played the roles of both interrogator and witness, asking himself questions, addressing himself as Mr. Alcala in a deeper than normal voice, and then answering them. During the self-questioning and answering session, he told jurors, often in a rambling monotone voice, that he was at Knott's Berry Farm applying for a job as a photographer at the same time Robin Samso was kidnapped. He showed the jury a portion of his 1978 appearance on the dating game in the attempt to prove that the earrings found in his Seattle locker were his not Robin's. Rodney made no significant attempt to dispute the 4 added charges other than to assert that he could not remember killing any of the women. As part of his closing argument, he played the Arlo Guthrie song Alice's Restaurant, in which the protagonist tells a psychiatrist that he wants to kill. After less than 2 days' deliberation, the jury convicted him on all 5 counts of first-degree murder. A surprise witness during the penalty phase of the trial was Tally Shapiro, his first known victim. Richard Rappaport, a psychiatrist paid by Rodney and the only defense witness, testified that borderline personality disorder could explain Rodney's claims that he had no memory of committing the murders. The prosecutor argued that he was a sexual predator who knew what he was doing was wrong and didn't care. In March 2010, Rodney was sentenced to death for a 3rd time. He died of unspecified natural causes in California on July 24, 2021, at the age of 77. For his 3rd trial, he decided to play like his own attorney and witness. What do you think the jury and judge were thinking while watching this play out?
I don't even know. Like, they probably thought he was off his rocker. Right? Like, I'm just imagining if I'm sitting in the courtroom, say I'm the jury, and this man in front of me starts doing, like, playing himself and an attorney in different voices, I would be like, he's definitely out of his mind.
Like, I'm imagining I'm, like, in the little, what are they called, pews or, like, benches or whatever?
Yeah.
I don't know. And he's in front, you've got, like, the table here.
Yeah.
And the table over here, I imagine him standing one side being like the attorney,
yeah,
and asking a question, then him running to the other side and being like,
literally,
I don't remember, I don't recall. Then him running back and he'd be like, I think you do recall, like in that deep voice.
Yeah. Even as the judge, honestly, I might laugh. Like, I know that sounds really bad because this, like, is so serious, but, like, this man in front of me is trying to convince me that he hasn't murdered anybody, but he's playing himself an attorney in different voices. If he wasn't, like, doing that, it wouldn't be as weird, you know, like, if he was just playing attorney, like, being his own attorney, okay, but the whole voices thing,
that just,
what weirds
I think that just completely
yeah, that just weirds me right out. I
did him in. Like, the judge was like, you know what? No.
Yeah.
And, like, his psychiatrist was trying to
convince him that he had
borderline personality disorder. No. I mean, he probably had some sort of disorder because, like, I mean, look at him.
Yeah. At the end, he played a song about wanting to kill.
Yeah. No thanks.
Like, I wish I knew what he was thinking. Like, why would you do that?
I wish I could be a fly on that wall.
I don't know. Very strange man.
If you found this video interesting, make sure you go check out our video about Jeffrey Dahmer, who also photographed his victims. It'll be right here.
We will see you guys next week. Peace.